What's up, guys? Happy Tuesday night. I'm Rob Whiteside. This is Deep in the Plus, and tonight, man, we are going to be talking about a fun one. It's Dinosaurs, the ABC TGIF's favorite, and to talk about it is someone who is loving some Jim Henson. It's Katie. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you, Rob?
I'm great. I mean, I feel like you're like the Jim Henson correspondent now. Is that okay? Can we just go to you for everything?
That's
Henson?
fine.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I would love to be have that title.
Okay. So you actually brought this one up. This just got added to Disneyplus not long ago. All 4 seasons of Dinosaur were loaded this month. And so I know that early on when you started talking about this one, you were like, we have to do the review of this one. When did this become one of your favorite shows?
Not that it's one of my favorites. I kind of love how quirky it is. I watched it as a kid. Like, I remember a few episodes. It was never one of my favorite Henson shows. Like, I always lean more towards Sesame Street or Fraggle Rock or something, anything like that. But Dinosaurs was always there. It was always like the other option, like, oh, if I'm feeling a little weird, maybe I'll watch some Dinosaurs.
Yeah, okay. Feeling a little weird, that's the classification for
Feeling
it?
a little weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I loved this show because I thought it was very innovative. I love animation, puppets, anything that's not just regular people, I guess.
Yeah.
So when this show came out, it was definitely a standout. I mean, it came out in 1991. It was part of the TGIF lineup. There were a lot of other things in the TGIF lineup, and I'm not sure who out there was into Family Matters or Full House. But, you know, every Friday night, they had a 2-hour block of programming that was kind of a safe space for families to go and watch shows. But, you know, they tried some stuff, some experimental stuff, and this is just one that came out. This came out around the time, it was about a year after Jim Henson died, and there's actually a kind of a plug for that at the beginning to say, hey, this is in memory of Jim. But he came up with this idea 3 years earlier, but executives wouldn't take him seriously until, for some reason, The Simpsons kind of broke ground for him to be able to do something a little more weird on TV.
Yeah. It was definitely, like Jim had mentioned, I watched an interview with Brian Henson, who is Jim's son, talking about how Jim had always talked about doing a dinosaur show. He always wanted something, and he had a variety show with the Muppets. He had a children's show with Froggle Rock and Sesame Street. He wanted to do something that was like a sitcom. So when it came time to that, he was like, I want to use my dinosaur idea that I've been waiting for. And sadly, he passed in 1990. But Brian really took headstrong on the project, and it ended up starting in 1991.
So this is actually a pretty interesting show because in a lot of ways it feels like an animated show, even though it is live action, I guess, because it's all,
Yeah.
you know, all puppetry. But, you know, I was noticing things like that the costumes don't ever change, really. Like Earl always wears the same outfit. I mean, every now and then there's
Yeah.
like a nightshirt or a something, but it's basically kind of like Peter Griffin always wearing the white shirt and the
Right.
green pants. The same thing with Homer Simpson with the white shirt and the blue pants. So it's very much like a sort of a comic book sort of a situation. I mean, a cartoon situation when it comes to that. But it's interesting how deep they go into some of the topics that they do. I watched, we talked about this
Yes.
for the show. I watched like the first season, and there are a lot of like each one's a big topic almost, you know, as they go through. Did you pick up on any of that when you were younger? Probably not,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, when I was younger?
Yeah.
No.
But
Probably
now,
probably not. There was like I was watching them back. I watched a lot of season 1 and a few from like the later seasons, and I was really surprised to see the topics that were brought up. Not that I think it's bad. I think it's hilarious that they used dinosaurs to talk about this because they could. It was a puppet show. They could talk about whatever they wanted. So to see like they mentioned whether it be religion, politics, like sex education, anything. You can find it in Dinosaurs.
that should be the
Yeah.
tagline. Religion, sex education, whatever you want, you can find it in Dinosaurs. Yeah, I
And
was.
I kind of I kind of liked that it wasn't they never leaned towards a certain way. They made fun of everything, whether it's left wing or right wing. They were making fun of everything because they could. And I kind of that's the novelty from the show, I think.
Yeah, I think that, you know, some of the things that they would talk about were like, you know, obviously hidden within the concept of the dinosaur. And one of them I'm thinking of is like, it's called Charlene's Tale, but Tale. It was episode, I think, 9. and in it, she hasn't gotten her tail yet, and all the other girls have gotten their tails, and so she buys like a prosthetic tail so that she can, pretend that she got her tail, and then everybody's making fun of her because she hasn't. And then, it's about Earl trying to, like, Earl is the dad. So to set the stage for those who don't know, which if you don't, I don't know why you're watching, but let's just say that you haven't seen this show and you're like, hey, Rob, Katie, is this a good show to watch? We'll tell you a lot about it. It's a family of dinosaurs who have decided to live their lives in a domestic situation. It's this new experiment in the dinosaur world where they're going to have jobs and families and houses. And so they're starting this family, and it's Earl Sinclair, his wife Fran. They have two kids, Robbie and Charlene, and then in the first episode, obviously, they get the baby, and we'll talk a lot about the baby because I think it's what everybody seems to remember from this show, as we go on.
Yeah.
But so Earl in this episode of Charlene's Tale is really saying, like, I'm not ready for my little girl to grow up. And again, for a Friday night family sitcom that is like rubber dinosaur puppets walking around, that's pretty heavy.
For sure. They definitely, as Henson is known for, like, whether with Muppets, it was a variety show, and he had variety from Elton John to the cast of Star Wars, everyone you could think of. So when they took grounds on a sitcom, you knew it was going to be as much as a sitcom as any other sitcom is. So I really, I appreciate that in the show, and that's what I mean. Like, if I was always feeling a little weird, it's different. It's something you're not used to seeing. Whether you're watching this normally with people, I'd rather watch it with plastic dinosaurs, probably.
Yeah. So I'm looking through here, and one of them, or just like at some of the titles here, and so you've got Family Challenge, which is very I've seen this situation early, today, which is the family is addicted to TV, but in modern days they're all addicted to their devices, and the mom's like, hey, can't we just sit around and watch TV? You've got the one about I Never Ate for My Father, where Robbie's trying to decide if he is a vegan or a vegetarian instead of being a carnivore. You've got this one about the endangered species, where there's this type of animal that they love to eat that's delicious, but it's endangered, and what does that mean? I mean, there's a lot of it seems like it's full of messages as it goes through, which again probably went over my head when I watched this as a kid.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was nice rewatching them now, because before it was just like easy television to watch, and now it's like this show has meaning. This was trying to push a message.
Yeah, so let's talk about the baby. I mean, that's like I can't even tell you how many people in chat have said, not the mama, I'm the baby, gotta love me, all these little catchphrases.
Yeah.
What's your favorite baby catchphrase?
Not the mama, obviously. I think not the mama. It's like the most classic. You think of him, that's what you think of.
Yeah, so the baby is born in the first episode. Actually, he's already there. It's basically his origin story in the first one, where you're first learning about the baby, and I'm kind of tripping through here trying to find a good shot of the baby. But he's in the very first episode. Earl is telling the story about the baby, about how he was born, and how dinosaurs are how this grand experiment worked out. And so as he's telling this story, it's basically their origin. So it's a great idea for a pilot using that device to tell this story. But the baby, you learn, some of his little things, like when he's like, hey, just born, I'm here, I'm the baby, gotta love me. That one's great. The one where he gets thrown through the air, which happens all through the series. And then he gets thrown through the air, thrown against the wall, and he's like, again. Like, those are the things that, like, I remember from this one, just so entertained. But the baby is voiced by Kevin Clash, who, for those of you who don't know, is the voice of Elmo from Sesame Street. And once you know that, you can't unhear Elmo, I don't think.
The whole time. And
Yeah.
it's awesome. Like, I loved watching the behind the scenes for Dinosaurs, seeing young Kevin Clash, like, doing the hand puppet, because Junior was one of the only hand puppets that was used on the show. The rest were real people in suits, and then puppeteers with animatronic hands controlling them. So Kevin Clash took on a big role, being the only hand puppet for this huge, heavy dinosaur baby. And he has so much character, and Kevin Clash is an awesome puppeteer, like has so much credit to his name, but he's known for being kind of goofy and silly, so I think he really embodies that a lot in Junior.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, and again, let's talk about the name. Like they call him Junior and they call him the baby, but that's really it. So he doesn't have another name other than that, unless there's something that I missed.
I There were a few episodes they called him Baby Sinclair because that's their last name, but other than that, that's what they call them.
Yep. So, one of the like recurring bits, and again, they get into that very heavily in season one, is Ask Mr. Lizard, I think is the name of the show, which is instead of Mr.
Yeah.
Wizard, it's a science show that the baby loves to watch. And it's so dark because of the bit where there's a little kid and the scientist, and he always puts the little kid in danger. And the first time we don't even know what's about to happen, Baby Sinclair says, "We're gonna need another Timmy." And so then Mr. Lizard's like, "Hey Timmy, why don't you go over there and pour that dangerous liquid into there and see what happens?" And then he blows up, and then Mr. Lizard looks to the side and says, "We're gonna need another Timmy." Again, this one is like a line for all time if you've seen this show. If not, you're
Right.
like, "What are you talking about, you weirdo?"
That's the thing. The One of my favorite parts about the show is the writing. The writing is so excellent. Every character has a personality that's written in the script that is so unique and special to these puppets. Like the full body, I guess they're Muppets, puppets, totally embody these characters in this writing, 100%. And I think it gives the show more of like a family feel because it's about being surrounded in a community and being in a family, just like most sitcoms usually. That's the root of them. But I think the writing really pulls it together.
Yep. No, I agree. So there are a lot of inside jokes about the fact that this is a dinosaur. There's a time where Robbie talks about like they are living in whatever year BC, and he says, "What are we counting down to? What are we waiting for?"
Yeah.
That's funny. All of the calendars, if you pay attention, are all backwards. They all start on the 31st and go to the first, which I thought, again, that's a great gag. I mean, there are so many
Yeah,
gags
that's
like,
just classic Henson humor right there.
yeah, for sure. So then like another one was there's a poster for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's Teenage Mutant like cavemen, and so that was funny. Just a lot of that like crossover pop culture stuff is really cool. There's a time in I think it starts in season two where Charlene starts wearing earrings, but they're basically just like pinned to the side of her head
Yeah.
because she doesn't have ears really. That kind of stuff is funny. Like the whole like humor specific to dinosaurs. The whole thing about Charlene's tail, like that the tail is the most attractive part, and there's a whole bit where they're like, the grandma's like, "Oh, my tail looks like this now," and they're like, "Well, that must be a fake
Yeah.
tail because they don't stand up like that anymore." And it's just like all this like weird like dinosaur humor that is like wrapped around all of this stuff. It was kind of genius, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. Seriously, there was one scene, I think it was like season 3 or season 4. There's an episode and baby's like it's security footage of the baby robbing like a convenience store. And I was like, you would never think that that would be in a Jim Henson show, a baby dinosaur robbing a convenience store. But
Yeah. So, as this show goes along, there's a lot of different uh, commercials that they use, and then there's also they always watch the news. So, to me, this was like some sort of a really smart plot device that they used as they were moving along to tell the story even more in depth, to show how big this world was. But the character who is the newscaster, his last name is Hand Up Me. Um, like I assume a joke to the puppet that he's a puppet, right?
yeah, yeah.
Just so weird. And there's commercials for like mating dances, and there was another commercial for like,
That was one episode that really stuck out. There is an episode where Robbie's learning about the mating dance in school, and they're like purposely not teaching the kids because they don't want them to partake in anything, but Robbie's learning otherwise. And there's a bit with sex workers in like a club, and Earl finds Robbie there. It's like, what like there's no way this is a puppet show right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and let's talk about that for a second. Like to me, I always looked at these as the voice actors inside the suit, and that's not the case. I mean, the people who are in the suits are obviously Muppet puppeteers who are doing this. They're this is what they do, and so they're walking around and they're moving things around the same way you would have with the Muppets or Sesame Street. And it's hard to like for me to separate that, which is means they're doing the right thing. So I always kind of pictured like Sally Struthers is the voice of Charlene, and I got to actually meet her. I had her sign a picture of Charlene because like that was
That's incredible.
her Disney tie. She gave me a hug. It was fantastic. She was great. She was in town doing a musical, and she came to the radio station, and so we got to talk to her and meet her, and she was great.
That's
So,
awesome.
but she's a larger woman, so it does make sense that she wouldn't be in the Charlene suit. But for some reason, I completely buy
It was,
into it.
yeah, because they make it believable. They make you think that. But I was watching and more of the behind the scenes. If you guys are interested, it's all on YouTube. You can go watch. There was a scene where the puppeteer who was in control of Earl was talking about how it was so hard to see in the suit that when he was walking, he would have to raise his head and open the mouth so that he could see where he was walking across the stage. So a lot of the time when you see him walking, it's never like stagnant. He's always like grunting so he can open his mouth or sighing just so they can get a peek out to see where they're going. I thought that was interesting. Something you never think of.
Yeah. So Stuart Penkin was the voice of Earl. Um, Jessica Walter, which I don't know that I ever knew this, was the voice of Fran, and she's the voice of Archer's mom and Arrested Development, the mom on Arrested Development.
Yes.
So that like, and now again, like all I see is like Archer's mom when I'm watching, like watching it now. But
Yeah.
so and then Robbie was somebody that I'm not familiar with at all, and I don't think he's really done anything since. And then Charlene was Sally Struthers, and then his boss, the big Triceratops, was Sherman Hemsley, who is famous from The Jeffersons. That was neat to see like these people, doing these roles that like doing the voice work, which again, it's voice work. It's very much animation, but with puppets.
I That's one thing I really appreciate about this show is because in the Henson Company, the voice actors are thrown around. Like you'll find the same voice actors on Sesame Street that are on Muppet Show and that are on Froggle Rock. So it's really interesting to see the way that they went with Dinosaurs, where most of them are new to the company. Which
So
it's nice to hear new voices.
the guy who does, and maybe you might know this better than I do. So the guy who does Gonzo, how do you pronounce his last name? It's Dave Goles.
Dave Gold.
Okay, so there
I
is a
met him on Astro Blasters one time. Yes.
you
Super
win,
random.
you win.
When
Um,
I was like 12 too. I was really young.
so I know that he does a lot of Muppets, but I mean, in my head, like he's Gonzo, Frank Oz is Fozzie, and Jim Henson is Kermit. Like in my head, like they do a bunch of others, but that's who they are when I see them. So
Right.
when he was, there is a scene where they're doing a Good Morning show, and he's voicing one of the co-hosts, and it sounds just like Gonzo when he does it, which a lot of
Right.
times it doesn't happen. They do a really good job of keeping these character voices separate. So, I'm like, oh, okay, I hear him. I know that's him. I know that's Gonzo. Do you think that they kind of felt gypped that they didn't get to do the voices because they were used to doing voices on the Muppets?
No, I think these they aren't just voice actors, they're the puppeteers too. So I feel like they have really close emotional bonds with the characters that they've been with for so long. Like
Yeah.
Dave Goles is still doing Gonzo to this day. So I think they appreciate what they have at Henson and which characters like they basically mothered. They've mothered into the company and they still have. Although like Frank Oz has left and obviously Jim's not with us anymore, we can still see a lot of the same people today. And I think they all appreciate their characters and what they're given.
Yeah, and when you watch the credits, you see a lot of those names that you recognize from the Muppet Show as they go
Yeah.
through. But it's, I mean, there's the puppets themselves. Let's just call them puppets. Are so good. They're so expressive. You don't really feel like you're watching these people in large rubber suits. You feel like you're actually watching this like actually go down. Like you're watching these
Yeah.
actors, like you're watching actors instead of watching puppets.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so, I mean, when I'm watching this thing and I'm watching all of this, I'm watching it in 4:3 instead of 16:9, obviously, and it's obviously like older, film because it's
It's
1991.
sometimes it's I feel like the Muppet Show is better quality than Dinosaurs sometimes. Like watching it back, the cinematography, it's really difficult to like keep watching episode after episode because it feels like you're staring at the same thing for too long. It's really dark. The colors are kind of undersaturated almost.
Okay, so that brings up another question then. Would We're going to ask at the end if you'd recommend this. That's going to be a thing. But right now, I would ask you, do you think that kids today would like this show? Just kids.
I was trying to convince my roommate to watch it with me, and she was like, I cannot watch that baby dinosaur. He was driving me crazy. So I don't know if there's still the same target audience today that there was in the 90s, for
Yeah.
sure. And I don't think there's as big as a following of Henson. The Muppets, maybe, but of Henson today, probably not.
Well, I mean, the Muppets in general, like I feel like they
The
keep
Muppet franchise, for sure.
yeah, but I feel like they keep missing steps here. I don't think Muppets Now is what it should be. I'd love to see them add Muppets Tonight to this. There's got to be a reason. Might be the music that they haven't added that to Disney Plus. I mean, there are all kinds of things that I think missteps here and there. Taking the Muppet Show away from Liberty Square, I think that was I
Yeah.
think that was a mistake.
That
Taking the
show was
Muppet
incredible.
yeah, taking Muppet Vision from California, I think that was a mistake. There are all these little things that I think, where they just, I don't know if it's not performing the way they want to or they don't invest in it the way they should. But you look at properties like Marvel and like Star Wars or Pixar that they've bought into that they've put so much support behind, and it doesn't feel like the Muppets ever really got that. But maybe we're just holding
It's
on to that. I don't know.
well, the Muppet Show is also now just on Disney Plus,
Yeah,
so I'm sure all of you are Henson fans if you're watching this. But I was watching one back, and I'm watching the Star Wars episode, and at the end, the Muppets and the Star Wars cast are singing "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes" at the end. I'm pretty sure. I was like, that's crazy. Both of these franchises are now owned by Disney. It
yeah,
just like was mind-boggling to me. But to see like, as you brought up, Henson or like the Muppets not getting as much love as they deserve, I think it's hard with no one's gonna give the Muppets the same love that Jim gave the Muppets. They
yeah.
aren't, there's a like differentiated path between that, and I don't think Disney understands that like Disney is a big company. Are there small people that are really understanding the message behind the Muppets and like what they can do for society when it comes to like Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock? No, it doesn't matter anymore. So it's a hard balance to see the Muppets today and like what is being prioritized.
Yeah, I'm reading through the chat here. Penguin Project said, "Oof, salting my wounds." Yeah, I don't know if it was specifically about
Yeah.
Muppet Vision being gone, Arlo, or if it was talking about the Muppets. But we are a big stan of the Muppets here, so I mean, don't even worry about that.
Yes.
Found Niku says, "I found out that Jim Henson Hour is only half owned by Disney. They have Muppet Vision, but not Storyteller."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and that was the shame of it is the Muppet. I mean, the Jim Henson Company was broken up after his death. There was a ton of stuff that was out there. Disney has gotten a lot of it over the years, but there's still a lot of it that's out there that is owned by other people. Obviously, the Children's Television Workshop has Muppets. I mean, Sesame Street, that's great. But all the rest of it, I felt like probably could have had better care had it all come to Disney. But you just
It
never
would be
know.
so nice to see
Yeah,
it all in the same spot, really. To
yeah.
have access and see the whole collection and all of the work because altogether it's like I think Henson like is one of my favorite directors, producers of all time. I respect him so much as a creator. So to have his like whole legacy kind of scattered is sad, I think.
Yeah, Arlo is clarifying Muppet Vision is the sadness, and I think might have been the very first time you and I did a show together. You mentioned loving like the inside jokes about like a net full of Jello and things like that
Yeah.
at Muppet Vision. So
Eric
yeah,
Eric said I was too poor to get Fraggle Rock on TV as a kid. Had to find a rich friend to go watch it at their house. Fraggle Rock was on HBO, so it was harder to
take your
watch
cares
Fraggle
away.
Rock.
Worries for
Yeah.
yeah. No, okay. So here's the thing about Fraggle Rock and getting back to dinosaurs, is that there are a bunch of times where you see creatures that kind of look like they're from Fraggle Rock.
Yes. That's my favorite thing. Absolutely is when Fran is in the kitchen making things and she opens a pot and a little creature just comes up and starts yelling at her. There's a creature in the fridge And that feels so Henson to me. Like that feels so like whimsical and maybe dinosaurs, but it's still just it's weird. It's fun.
Well, they had, I believe, some of the props at one point on the back lot at Hollywood Studios when you would go and you would watch the Pearl Harbor scene and you'd walk past the Hannah Montana house and back through the prop room to get onto the tram. That prop room used to have the refrigerator
Really, I don't
to
remember.
Dinosaurs. Yeah, I mean, it was the stuff you had to look for and you had to know that you were looking for it. But that was one of the things that I thought was really cool, that they still at that point, which was probably a decade later, still had props from Dinosaurs, the TV show. But yeah, I love the scene in the episode where the baby becomes king, where he gets all like, he figures out the refrigerator. He figures out that if he opens
Yeah.
up and just tells them what he wants, that they'll give him everything. He's like, more, keep it coming, more, more. And then they put a funnel in his mouth and then they pour the sugar in. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So good. That was so good. But yeah, like those jokes are great. But like I talked about, like before we went off on this tangent about Muppets and all that kind of stuff, is kids today. Like, I don't mean to sound like kids today, but I'm going to do that, is that
It's different.
there's no laugh track in this. It's very quiet I mean, when you're watching the show, which I think, again, makes it feel sort of slow and old. Because there's not really like a lot of music and there's not a lot of sound effects. And so I think that it makes it feel a little bit more like a little more empty. Would you
But
agree?
the intro is amazing.
There are so many things about the intro, like, this whole, like, he's trudging through the forest, and then instead of, like, the big reveal is him going, honey, I'm home, which is great. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the little, like, the kind of comical music that goes along with it after that is so good. But that whole intro is great. Here's the problem, though. When you're binge watching, like I was, there's a button to skip it. I feel like Disneyplus should already know that I'm watching this and go ahead and skip it for me. I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
that.
It's not many people are sitting down to watch 1 or 2 episodes of the dinosaurs. They're sitting down, they're binging it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing. There needs to be a way for them to time code that, and I'm sure they can, where it will just skip the intros, or that you could choose that. And if there is that feature and you know about it, tell us about it. But I don't see that. So when you're watching one of these episodes, they're about 23, 24 minutes. But if you take off the beginning intro and then the end credits, it's maybe 20 minutes. So it's an easy watch when you're watching this. But the end credits look like they were done in the 1980s, not the 1990s, because
Yeah.
they look so like bargain basement.
Yeah. I think the production value in this show might be like they were spot on with so many things. The writing is amazing, the characters are amazing, the production of the creatures, like from the Henson Creature Shop, amazing. But the production value, like I was stating, like the cinematography that, like you mentioned, the outro and the credits, sometimes you're wondering, like, they definitely put their eggs in certain baskets in this show.
So I'm going to switch gears for a second and talk about how they use humans in this show, because I think that's kind of awesome. They're almost like in The Good Dinosaur, which I'm sure is everyone's favorite Pixar movie, how like Spot is sort of like a pet or a dog. In this one, they kind of use them as like they're the wildlife, they're the pets. There's a bunch of them playing in the front yard, which I think is
Yeah.
funny. And they like look out the window. They use them as science experiments. There was the episode where Robbie doesn't want to they're like, oh, we're gonna painlessly put them to sleep, but he's walking the teacher's walking around the club to club them to death. And so Robbie tries to like let his loose, which again goes back to whole like serious topics of maybe animal abuse and things like that. So it's really funny that they are the animals in this. There was something in the beginning episodes where they were showing on the news how there were two at the zoo. Chang Chang was one of them, and so that's the mating dance one where they're trying to mate
Yeah.
them, but they don't realize they're both men. And so like they take Chang
Right.
Chang and send him off for mating dance lessons. And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack with these
Which,
each
yeah,
episode.
what is the message behind that?
Don't know. Don't know.
Right.
So let me talk about this too. So there's the grandmother played by Florence Stanley, Ethel Phillips. The running joke here with this entire thing is that there's so many of these characters that are named for gasoline companies. So his boss's name is BP. And then you've got Ethel, and her last name is Phillips, and Phillips was, a gas company. And then Sinclair, which is their last name, was also a gasoline company. So
The Dinosaurs gas
yeah,
company.
right. So it's
Right.
just like thinking about that again, a much deeper level that like if what's your target audience at this point? Are you I mean it's families, but there's a lot of like inside jokes that must have just been funny to them. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, and I think most of the time that's what they're thinking. Like they think it's funny, everyone will think it's funny.
Yeah. So then just going through some of the episodes, the episode 4, which is High Noon, where I think this is the one where there's a guy at the grocery store that helps Fran with her groceries, and then he decides he likes her, so he's going to go ahead and kill Earl, so that he can like take over his family. And then he shows up and he's like, you know, 50 times taller than Earl and pokes a hole in the ceiling. And I mean,
Yeah.
just like that's
There's
so weird.
yeah, it's there's some weird side characters, like Fran's friend who's always hanging out. I think she's like a brontosaurus with a long neck, and she's always peeking in. And then, like you said, the mother-in-law, the grandma, I think is an amazing character. She's hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, the side characters are good.
Who's your least favorite character? Because I've got my own least favorite.
That's a hard question. I don't like his boss, really.
Okay. For me, it's Robbie,
Yeah, Robbie.
and here's why.
Yeah, Robbie's
What?
kind of like yeah,
No, you go ahead and say it.
Robbie. It's hard because it's just so stereotypical. Like the two kids really feel like they just like Earl is like he's the classic sitcom dad. The kids feel just the same,
Yeah.
but Robbie more than Charlene.
Well, it's almost like every episode is Robbie not wanting to do what's always been done, and so, and that's fine for an episode, maybe two. But it was like the running theme for almost all of them. It was like, oh, there's hurling day, and this is when we throw the old people into the pit. He's like, come on, it's the modern century. We don't do this anymore. We don't have a reason for this anymore. Which again, fine,
Yeah,
perfect. And then it's like, why do we do this and why do we do that? And he's always questioning everything, which is again good for a couple episodes. But I think it's one of those where it's just like it felt like it was happening too much. There's
that's the downfall of this show is there's no progression in these characters. They're never progressing. It's the same thing over and over.
the one where he gets eaten, um, and then Earl gets eaten to go find him. Um,
I don't know if I saw that one.
oh, yeah, I'm trying to remember which episode that was. That I think that was the one where he was going to be a vegetarian, and so he didn't want to. He wanted out of the food chain. Basically, is what happened on that one. Um, and then there was like the Howling Day where he's like, I don't know why we do this because it's dumb and
Yeah.
the world's not going to end. And then you find out, like, you figure out why they do it is to blow off steam. Um, so yeah, it's just really, and then of course he gives Charlene a hard time about her tail in that episode. So again, I'm just gonna say, like, somebody in chat fight me, but I think Robbie is the worst character.
Yeah, Robbie fans, watch out.
Yeah, all you Robbie fans. So another thing about this is that this show had 4 seasons, and there were like a bunch of them that were shorter seasons, like 14 episodes or 13 episodes, and then there was I think one season that's 22. But there's 65 episodes total. Now back in the day, you'd want to get to 100 so you could get into syndication. It feels like they could have pushed a little bit more for that, but they didn't go that route. And then it came back again on Disney Channel. Is that where you watched it? Was Disney Channel?
I think I watched it like it had to be like 2007, 2008 on Prime. Amazon Prime had it for a while,
Wow. Okay.
I think,
Um,
before Disneyplus was even an idea.
who remembers back that far? I mean, hasn't there always
We
been
would
Disney
have no
Plus?
show.
That is a good
Yeah.
point. By the way, I just want to stop and say to all of you watching, thank you for watching. We have 47 people watching right now. If you could give us a like, we would love that.
Give us some likes.
Yeah,
Smash it.
all of those things. Also, WDWNT Entertainment is a newer channel, so if you could also subscribe, we'd appreciate that too. I often have been begging for people, and Katie, I guess you don't really know this, to give us more likes. And I know that Eric and Jill are in the chat, and they do this unboxing, and they open up stuff, and people love it and give them lots of likes and things. So I have Wishables here. So I want you to pick a Wishable.
Let's do it.
To open. We're going to open at the end if we get to 50 likes. And so we're at 44. We should be able to do it. So I got an Aladdin one. I got a Small World, and I have a Beauty and the Beast. So think about which one you think we should open.
Come on, guys, 5 more likes.
Yeah, should be pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for Nico just said, "Where's your wishable bribe?" There it is. There you have it. So let's talk about the parks a little bit. So they've got a great property here. They've got a little place in Florida called Animal Kingdom, and they've got a little place called Dinoland USA. No dinosaurs in Dinoland USA, not from this show. Why is that?
I don't know. Why aren't the Fraggles in Animal Kingdom too?
There should totally be Fraggles. So
we just don't see it. Like we only see little bits of the Muppets, and that's it. So, I don't think they ever thought there was a big enough following.
Well, once upon a time, they thought there might be, and they actually had the characters at Hollywood, what was then Disney MGM Studios.
Baby.
Yeah, so they actually had, and they're not great, by the way. You would think this is an easy way to move these characters into real life because of the big rubber suits, but they're not great. They look a little weird. They did a thing where they did the surprise family of the day. That's a little bit small. Let me see if I can bring that up a little bit.
Never seen this.
Yeah, so it's the surprise family of the day, and the Sinclairs were the surprise family of the day. I think it lasted about a year.
Hilarious.
It was a little show that they came down and were like telling everybody what the surprise family of the day was. And it was during the 20th anniversary of Disney World. And so they had the Sinclairs in there. Then they did some like meet and greet stuff where they would take pictures. And so here's the whole family, minus the baby, because the baby, I guess, had other stuff to do. But here is a little bit of that show. So they had them. They would bring it down as if they were shooting this parade. So they had fake cameramen, fake boom operators, which is the thing you see there. And then Earl would talk a little bit about being, the Sinclairs are the family of the day. Grandma was on the lower level. There's a table up there that Junior's sitting on. But like Earl's voice was not the original. I don't think back then they cared too much about that kind of thing. But I mean, there was a time, in this universe where there were actually dinosaurs in the parks. It just wasn't ever at Disney Hollywood Studios. But I feel like
I wonder how long they stayed for.
It was about a year.
A year.
Yeah, but there was also a little thing called the Osborne Lights. Maybe you've heard of that
The Osborne Family Lights Show.
And there was the baby hidden in the window.
I do remember him.
Of the Osborne Family Lights. So like that, again, there was a little bit of tie-in there in the fact that they had him in there. These characters seem like they're sort of made for marketing to me. I mean, could they make a comeback?
I would want to say I would love to see them make a comeback. I don't think we have the same audience today that would let them make that comeback.
But we could get another round of these Happy Meal toys.
Oh my God,
which
imagine.
would just be so fantastic. I actually had one of these, the grandma. The deal is that you would squeeze the little thing and then it would push air through and make them like she would rock back and forth, or the baby would slam his pan down, or Robbie would rock out on his guitar. Yeah, it's kind of insane
Amazing.
to think that there was ever this showing for this product, but definitely
But
definitely
they are like, it looks like they're made to market. They're so distinct and unique and different. You'd think they were, but I think they're a little off edge sometimes. Maybe they're too edgy for people.
No, that makes sense. So here's the other thing is that Chief Leaf, thank you for the uh,
Thank
$10
you,
super
Chief
chat.
Leaf.
Katie, your knowledge is amazing. It really is. So, that's one of
Thank
the things
you.
that I love about you is that you've got this kind of old soul thing going on, like we talked about before, where you have more knowledge of these things, but you're seeing it, through a different lens, and so that's always fun to see. Um, but when I'm looking at all of these things, the one thing that I think of, which you may be too young to know about since it's not actually Disney, is that this looks like the Flintstones.
It does. I was gonna mention that it like the intro reminds me of the Flintstones, and I don't know if it's the prehistoric like attitude of the show, but definitely like the Flintstones.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of it, and let me see if I can find it. But like that looks like even from the sets. Um, I'm not sure I can find it easily, but I but this like the town that they're in actually looks like it's bedrock. Their house looks like it's like Fred
Yes,
Flintstone's house, and
they're
so
like made out of rocks and just like the
yeah.
Flintstones.
Yeah, so like that, and then the Flintstones, I think, to my understanding, were a takeoff on um, the Honeymooners, the old black and white Honeymooners TV show, and that the Honeymooners, it was that same thing where he's got his best friend Ralph, who this one is Roy. It's just he's his wife, and I mean, it's just they're very the whole situation. They didn't have kids in the Honeymooners, but it's that same kind of a situation where
Yeah,
he's a blue collar worker, same as Fred Flintstone, same as Earl Sinclair. Earl's job is to push down trees for the We Say So Corporation, um, which again is another really fun little joke. But these like his job is push down trees, whereas Fred's was to like move rocks. So again, there's a lot of tie-in to that and the way that the family dynamic is set up. Obviously, a little bit different because of the kids situation, but the kids do seem like they're like just like right off the shelf, as you said, like typical sitcom kids. So when this show died out, died out in Dinosaurs, there were it
when the
was
show went extinct.
sure, sure, we'll put that out there
Yeah.
too. Um, when that happened, there were a lot of shows on the TGIF lineup, and a lot of them that came after it were just very bizarre. And I think we talked about this on a show that we did a panel discussion about all the things that are missing from Disney Plus. And it's great to see this here, but you've got Boy Meets World is already there. Full House is not, probably different ownership. Family Matters is not, but we've got Boy Meets World, and we've got it's almost like we're starting to build that TGIF a little bit over on ABC. But there are a couple of them, including a really weird one that I talked about then called Teen Angel, about a kid who is dared to eat an old hamburger from underneath his bed, and then he dies, and then he becomes a guardian angel for his best friend for the rest of the series. Very strange. But
I've not seen that one.
there were a lot of other strange ones that happened. This one felt like a solid part to that lineup, and it mixed it up a little bit because it wasn't animation, but it was kind of that little fun like break. And it also wasn't the first show in the lineup. It was like 9 o'clock. That's weird, right?
Yeah. Uh, It was always an idea to have like these kind of shows be late night to the Henson Company too, because like originally Muppets started out late night. So I don't know.
Well, in chat, I'm seeing a lot of people who do know what the Honeymooners are, and more Beverly please says one of these days, Alice, which again was one of the famous lines from the Honeymooners. But yeah, so like all in all, this show I think is still fun. It has a lot of again, it has a lot more messages than I remember it having along the way. From a technical standpoint, man, I feel like it's Henson at its best, even though it was a year after Jim passed away.
It's
All of these,
very innovative.
and it was things he put into
Very, very.
place. I mean, he was a part of the planning of this entire thing.
Yeah, I agree for like the 90s the way they were handling these puppets with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was being produced at the same time, and Jim Henson's Creature Shop was working on that. And they were using animatronics and the puppets for the first time with the eyes and the mouths, which they kind of dabbled with in Fraggle Rock, but they really got a hang of it around this time. So Dinosaurs, it was no question for them to produce it like this and have these characters be animatronics and give them more character that maybe the Muppets lacked. So I think it makes them a little different than the rest of what the company holds.
Yeah.
in that sense.
Whenever I hear Fraggle Rock, like the first thing I think about is the trash heap. Why is that?
I wish I didn't think about the trash heap. She's not one of my favorites.
Okay. So before we get like your final thoughts on this, anything else that we missed that we didn't talk about with this? I mean, again, it's a
I
TV series,
think
which makes it a little bit harder to like put it all into an hour. But anything we missed?
I didn't watch the finale yet because I still want to watch a few episodes. But someone is asking, are you going to discuss the series finale at all, Nico?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. Are you okay talking about it because it will be sort of a
We can talk
spoiler?
about it. I just don't want to watch it.
Okay. So here's the thing about this finale. The finale was dark. And the thing is that I don't necessarily remember watching it real time and originally, but the finale is very dark. And as I'm doing research about this show and like watching it and seeing what people are saying about it, the finale is the thing people talk about. And I don't know that I knew that was a thing until this happened. So I went back and watched the finale just for that reason. Like I jumped ahead to watch this one. And it is. And it's basically a lesson about the environment. And the idea is that there are these bugs, and the bugs, you can cover your ears, Katie, if you don't want to hear this, but there are these
I'm just
bugs.
kidding.
And the bugs, the bunch bugs, they have to come every year, and they have to eat back this plant. And if they don't eat back the plant, then the plant takes over. And so they're like, okay, well, the bugs are coming. We're excited. The plant's kind of out of control this year. And they do this countdown because the bugs come the same time every year. And when they're sitting there waiting for the bugs, they don't come. And so they're all like, huh, oh, well, I'm sure something happened. And so then one of the bugs comes by later on as the plant is growing into the house, out of control. Everybody's having problems with the plant. They're trying to beat it back. It's attacking Junior. It's like they're using a weed whacker, like they can't get rid of this plant. It's just this creeping vine that's coming everywhere. And the bug's like, oh, I was headed here, and then like I left my stove on, and so I had to go back. But now I'm here because we're going to the swamp to mate, and then after that, then we come and we all eat this plant. And they're like, oh, great. Charlene's like, I'll take you there. And because it's mating season, the bug is like, kind of hitting on Charlene the entire time that she's taking him to the swamp. And when they get to the swamp, like the We Say So Corporation has made a wax fruit plant, which again, wax fruit, like, I guess the point being that it's the most useless thing that you would ever not need, right? It's just, why would you have wax fruit? Now today, I don't know if people even know what wax fruit is, but there was a wax fruit plant, like a plant, not as in growing, but a plant as in a factory. And so when they get there and they see that the swamp's been covered up and this is there, and then you find out that they've been killing the bugs that come because they want to keep them out of the factory. Now we're like, okay, now there's a problem with the environment, right? So now this whole thing is very environmental. And then they're like, okay, so what do we do now to fix this problem? Because this plant is growing everywhere, and we've basically killed off these bugs, pushed them into extinction. They're like, the company's like, great, we'll just kill it with weed killer. And so they drop weed killer from the sky, but instead of just killing this plant, it kills all of them. And then they're like, okay, now what? We've killed all the plants. And then meanwhile, his boss, who is just counting up the money, is like, I don't really care about all this stuff. He's big business. Then it goes into this, well,
Bro.
we're going to have to put clouds up in the air, because if we put clouds up in the air, it'll rain, and rain will bring back the vegetation, and we'll all be okay. So they decide to put bombs in all of the volcanoes, which will then create clouds, but it makes these dark, poisonous clouds that then fill the sky, and they're never going to go away. So now Earl is at home with the family. They're all cold. There's no food. And it's, the environment is changing. And, the guys on the news saying, like, this is the end. This is never going to fix itself. We're doomed. And then he makes this big apology about everything. And then the baby's like, but we're going to live forever, right? And they're all like, well, we'll be here with you. What? Like, that's so dark.
Dark.
And then to make it even darker, Mr. Hand Up Me, the news anchor, says at the very end of it, he says, good night and goodbye. And then it goes away. It's like, so he says goodbye. And then they cut to end credits outside the house, silent with snow falling. That's how it ends. Have you ever...
The finale everyone wanted for the show.
Have you ever...
This is what we were all waiting for.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever heard of anything like that, though? Like anything that was like where they end a show in that dark a way? I mean, like even Endgame had a happier ending than this. Maybe
I don't need to watch it.
I don't know. And again, I'm sorry I explained the whole thing, but I do think that it was like I don't know that I ever saw it before. And yet again, as I'm looking across the internet, that's the thing that people were talking about. And it's this cold, harsh reality of climate change and the environment versus big business. And again, that goes back to the whole idea that there's a message that they're trying to send us with this show. And the message is, as humans, we're horrible, and learn from the dinosaurs that they killed their own planet, which obviously they didn't. There's this one scene in early episodes where there's a meteor headed towards their house, and it's almost like that's going to be the thing that like destroys like life as we know it. And then it gets smaller, goes to their roof, and all it does is it messes up like breaks their television up. And then they're not covered because they're covered by meteor insurance, but meteors are meteors until they hit the ground, and then they're meteorites. And so the insurance company, obviously of the time, was very keen in how they set up the insurance. So I don't know. It's really crazy. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and ask you, because this is how we do this on the show. I'm going to ask you, Katie, would you recommend this show?
For today, no. As much as I think it's a really special show and it has a really special place in the Henson Vault, I don't think it's as easy to watch today. I don't think it doesn't grab the viewer, and I'd be honest with you guys. I like it. I think if you're looking for something a little different, off pace, something you're not used to seeing, something like a sitcom, watch this. But for everyone, no, I do not recommend it.
Yeah, and again, my go-to is always, is this relevant or important to Disney? Like you as Disney fans, like, is this important to you to know? Not really. The show that was at Hollywood Studios or MGM at the time, most people have forgotten about or never got to see it. There's no real like references to this show anymore. So, I don't think as a Disney fan you have to watch it. I think if you're a Henson fan, you probably have to watch it. I think that's almost.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's required watching if you're a Henson fan. So, if you really are going to brag to all your friends about what a big Jim Henson fan you are, like Katie does, you're going to have to watch this show.
Know the dinosaurs.
Know the dinosaurs. And you know what? Just from a technical standpoint, from what they were able to do back in 1991, it is a really well done, puppetry show. But as we talked about, production value wise, it's really slow. I don't think you could get kids into it these days. I will tell you, I watched this by myself. I don't know, like you said, I don't know if I could get somebody else to watch it with me. So I think it's a fun show, but I wouldn't stop somebody on the street and go, you know what you need to watch? Would I say WandaVision? Yes. Would I say this? No, I wouldn't say that one.
Right.
So we got to 54 likes. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Katie, pick one. Woo! What do you like? You like?
I think we want to do Small World.
Small World. Okay, we got Small World. So there's for the Small World ones. This is what you're looking at. What are you guessing?
I'm gonna say one of the hippos. I think there's two. Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
I think we're looking at a clock face here. Ta-da!
It's a clock face. I was wrong.
Yeah. You send me my bucket, I'll send you that clock face, Katie.
Yeah, that's my ultimatum.
So thank you guys so much for watching. We have so many other reviews on here. We have Jill and I did the Muppet Christmas Carol. We've done the Muppet movie. If you're a big Henson fan, we'd love to have you go back and watch some of those. If you haven't already, again, please subscribe. Please join us again next Tuesday night where be reviewing something else. Haven't figured out what that is yet, but we will be reviewing something else next Tuesday night at 9. And thank you, Katie, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me, Rob.
And y'all make sure to tune into Tom versus Josh, which is up next on the main channel. Have a great night, guys.